All right, hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible Verse by Verse, a plain and simple study of the entire Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. We are in Deuteronomy chapter 5, and keep in mind, this is the last day of Moses' life, literally. After he finished the book of Deuteronomy, he literally is going to walk up into the mountains and die. At least from the Israelites' perspective, they won't see him. He'll walk up in the mountains and they will never see him again. So this is really his farewell address, and it is filled with exhortations, encouragement, the commands of God, kind of rehashing the commands, because this is Moses now. Again, this is it for him. He's completed all of what God has told him to do. He has brought them to the brink of the Jordan River, and that's as far as he can go. He's going to say it probably again, because of you all, I can't go into the promised land because, God got angry at me, but it was actually Moses' fault. Moses, God said, speak to the rock, and Moses hit the rock. So for that, Moses and Aaron could not go into the land, which is kind of interesting with Aaron himself, because Aaron was not, but that was the incident that Aaron could not go, which suggests maybe that Aaron could have went in. Both Moses and Aaron probably could have went into the promised land had they not disobeyed God in that one instant. As I said, Aaron had racked up a lot of stuff. But anyway, so this is Moses' final address to the people, and as I said, though the book of Deuteronomy seems like it's long, in reality it's not. You probably can read, depending on how fast a reader you are, you can probably read the book of Deuteronomy in an hour or two, right? So you can imagine if Moses was rehearsing this, speaking this out loud, again, we're talking about maybe 2 hours, 3 at tops, okay? All right, so let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 5, and Deuteronomy chapter 5. It says, Moses summoned all of Israel and said to them, Israel, listen to the statutes and ordinances I'm proclaiming, excuse me, as you hear them today. So again, this today is literally Moses' last day. And it says here, learn and follow them carefully. The Lord our God made a covenant with us at Horeb. He did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with all of us who are alive here today. The Lord spoke to you face to face from the fire of the mountain. At that time, I was standing between the Lord and you to report the word of the Lord to you, because you were afraid of the fire and did not go up to the mountain. Now, one thing about what he just said, remember, everyone that was 20 years old and under were the ones who are now going into the promised land. The event that Moses talked about happened around the 3rd month mark. Their condemnation in terms of that generation that was condemned to die in the wilderness happened about the year mark, little after the year mark. Okay? So when Moses says, you all were there, many of them probably were children. And the oldest at the time would have been now, at this day, 60 years old. He said, verse 6, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the place of slavery. Do not have other gods beside me. Now this is the 10 commandments that he's giving them. And of course, remember, the entire law is just the explanation of the 10 commandments. In other words, it's like when you think about the laws pertaining to worship, well, it all has to do with what? Do not have other gods beside me. Verse 8, do not make an idol for yourself in the shape of anything in heaven above or on earth below or in the waters underneath. You must not bow down to them or worship them, because I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the father's sin to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing faithful love to 1,000 generations to those who love me and keep my commandments. A couple of things I want to unpack with this, because I don't think I really got into kind of the explanation of the Ten Commandments itself. So the first commandment, of course, is not worshiping any other God. And then he says, you must not bow down to them. Let me go back. Verse 8, when he says here, don't have any other gods beside me. And remember, during this time, paganism and idolatry was the sin of the day. This is why it is featured so much here. Now, our idolatry takes the form of other things, but literally, remember, they were worshiping other gods. Remember, the golden calf was a literal calf that they made and said, this is our God. So when he says here, don't make idols for yourselves in the shape of anything. Sometimes people will say that you can't make a statue, that you can't draw a picture. And that's not really what the command said. It didn't say you can't make a statue. For example, you see angelic pictures, you see pictures of Jesus, you see pictures of God, Moses, whatever. That in itself is not the sin. For example, I never feature pictures of Jesus, especially white Jesuses. I don't, because people just, you don't know, and people usually trying to make these pictures in the image that they think Moses or any figure should be. But in and of itself, that's not what this command is about. The idea was that don't make any images and then bow down to them in a pagan, idolatrous way. That's the command, not to do that. And I said this before, when he says that I am a jealous God, sometimes people have a problem with that. And the idea is that, because first of all, we understand the term jealous in and of itself doesn't mean evil in and of itself. So kind of understand that jealous doesn't mean evil in and of itself. The ideal of jealous simply means hot and passionate emotions. In other words, the idea is that when, and we can understand this when we crave attention and affection from someone else. So understand that. And the idea, remember, is that we're getting language to give us an understanding of how to relate to God. So the idea is that if I'm jealous, for example, of my wife, in other words, if I see another man paying attention to my wife, and vice versa, if my wife sees another woman paying attention to me, then I'm giving that woman attention, or she's giving that man attention. My emotions burns because what? Those are my emotions. That attention, that affection, that's for me. And if I see her giving it to another man, or if she sees me giving it to another man, that's jealousy. In and of itself, that's not evil. Now, if I go over and beat the man up, slap my wife, whatever, now the jealous act becomes sinful, bad, and evil. In some cases, a lot of cases, criminal, of course. So the idea when he says that that God is jealous, the idea is that God's emotions, and yes, believe it or not, remember, we were made in the image of God. So our thought patterns, our emotions, remember, are made in the image of God. Okay. So if we are worshiping other idols, when God is saying that worship, that attention, I created you for me, that's what he means. Now, when he says that he is punishing the children for the father's sins to the third generation of those that hate me, and that's important to understand there, it is not punishing children for the father's sin. That's extremely important because it is those who hate me. In other words, they're continuing their father's sin. Verse 11, do not misuse the name of the Lord your God, because the Lord will not leave anyone unpunished who misuse his name. Okay. Or verse 12, be careful to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. As the Lord your God has commanded you, you are to labor 6 days and do all your work. But on the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. You, you must not do any work. You, your son or daughter, your male or female slave, your ox or donkey, any of your livestock, or the foreigner who lives within your gates, so that your male and female slaves may rest as you do. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out of there with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. That is why the Lord your God has commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Now, look at, I want to go back when he says don't misuse the name of the Lord your God. God always commands us and demands of us that we are not to treat him in a common way, which is really what the word holy is about. I mean, our approach to God should always be in the mindset that God is not like any or others. And that's why he says don't misuse his name, or as the King James says, take his name in vain. That's what they do. That you're not supposed to just, hey, God is my N-word. Okay? That's you're not to misuse God's name. Okay. The Sabbath day, of course, is the seventh day rest. And what I want to focus on is that notice that everyone was supposed to rest, because believe it or not, one of the reasons why we have laws is because people would abuse that. So in other words, you would have, and I can see the Pharisees doing this. Well, I'm going to rest, but my slave can work, right? Or the animals or whatever. He says, no, everyone was to rest on the Sabbath day. Verse 16, honor your father and mother as the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live long and so that you may prosper in the land the Lord your God has given you. Paul would say that this is the first command with a promise, meaning what? If you keep this law, honoring your father and your mother, and then he says that you will live long and then you will prosper. And you do see today how disrespectful some kids are. And I'm going to also say that's the parents' fault. But remember, this command is to children to honor their father. Excuse me, to honor their father and their mother. There was one other thing. Honor your father and mother as the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live long and prosper in the land the Lord your God has given you. Something just slipped my mind here. Oh, the word honor. You know how the word honor is used in Scripture? It means not only to, the word honor, whether it just means respect, right? But also financially. For example, if your parents get old, you are to honor them, take care of them. That is in the way of honor and value. So Jesus would address this in exactly that way when he says that the word Corban, how that the Pharisees made up this fake command that they would tell people, hey, you could instead of taking care of your parents, you can give a portion of that money that would have been used to take care of your parents as a gift to the temple, and we call it Corban. And Jesus says, foul, that was foul. Honor your father and mother. All right. Then he says, do not murder. Of course, I'm using the Holman Christian Standard Translation. This is, I think, the proper rendering of it. We did go over and define, we showed several scriptures when it says, thou shalt not kill, even if you wanted to use the term thou shalt not kill. And that's from the King James rendering. When you understand and read the entire of Scripture, murder is the proper way. For example, remember the city of refuge. The very city of refuge was that if a person kills someone unintentionally, well, remember the other commandment says thou shalt not kill. This is why Scripture interprets Scripture. So the cities of refuge was that if a person accidentally killed someone, he could flee to these cities of refuge. So I say that because there are some people that will say, well, wait a minute now, kill is kill. No, there are different applications of kill, right? Especially when God tells the children of Israel, go and kill these people. The idea of murder was your malice intent. Then he says, do not commit adultery. And now we looked at all of the verses, by the way, of adultery. Both men and women, if they were to commit adultery, both were guilty and both were to be punished. Do not steal. Do not give a dishonest testimony against your neighbor or false neighbor, right? Do not covet your neighbor's wife or desire your neighbor's house, his field, his male or female slave, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Great commands, right? Especially don't do them to me, but remember, I'm commanded as well, okay, not to covet your things. And one of the things about the Ten Commandments too is, you know why these Ten Commandments are so great, and what sets the Ten Commandments apart from any other ideology is because, one, they're based upon loving God, and then it is based upon valuing my neighbor or my fellow human as God values them. That's the standard. So if I do that, I won't steal, I won't bear false witness, I won't covet. Okay? Verse 22, the Lord spoke these commands in a loud voice to your entire assembly from the fire. Now remember, Moses is rehearsing this to the people. The Lord spoke these commands in a loud voice to your entire assembly from the fire cloud and the thick darkness on the mountain. He added nothing more. He wrote them on 2 stones of tablets and gave them to me. All of you approached me with your tribal leaders and elders when you heard the voice from the darkness, and while the mountain was blazing with fire, you said, look, the Lord our God has shown us his glory and greatness, and we heard his message. And we heard his voice from the fire. Today we have seen that God speaks with a person, yet he still lives. And that was, remember, everybody kind of, it is true, but not exactly how they kind of thought it. They didn't really actually see God. That's the thing. If you see God face to face, and even now, if we was to see God in our physical bodies right now, we would die. But they did not see God. They actually saw an angel, and then they saw the appearance. They saw the result, the blazing fire and all that. Anyway, this fire will consume us. Okay, let's go to verse 5. But now, why should we die? This great fire will consume us, and we will die if we hear the voice of the Lord our God any longer. For who out of mankind has heard the voice of the living God speaking from them from the fire, as we did and have lived? Go near and listen to everything the Lord our God says. Then you can tell us everything the Lord your God tells you, and we will listen and obey. Thus, the term mediator comes into play here. Verse 28, the Lord heard your words when you spoke to me, and he said, I have heard the words of these people and have spoken to you. Everything they have said is right. If they only had such a heart to fear me and keep all of my commands always, so that they and their children will live. Go tell them, return to your tents, but you stand here with me, and I will tell you every command and statute and ordinance. You are to teach them so that they may follow them in the land that I'm giving them to possess. Be careful to do as the Lord your God has commanded you. You are to not turn aside to the right, to the left. Follow the whole instructions the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live, prosper, and have a long life in the land you will possess. Now, these are going to be sort of reiterated in several fashions. I want you to notice the thing here. Notice God says that they may have, oh, if they would just have a heart to seek me. Or one reason why they don't, of course, is because of the sinful nature. All right, guys, chapter 6. Let me come out of this. Look, chapter 6 in the next study. I'll see you then. All right.